I'll pause and say I have to go. Okay. All right. We're on number 47 now. I'm sketch noting. Okay. Page 92. Knowledge comes in strange ways. I never thought a person who lived over 100,000 miles away could impact me. Remember, if you're talking, you're reading. But tonight that changed. Lotta had been with us for 4 days now, and we've really gotten to know her well, and she's just like us. When I met her, we were wearing the same shoes. I couldn't believe she was wearing Doc Martens. When we started to get to know each other, we talked about the same things. About Pearl Jam and how cute Eddie Vedder was. If I didn't know that she was Lotta Filipovic, a famous teen author from war-torn Bosnia, I would have just assumed that she was a normal 15-year-old girl who liked to shop and hang out with her friends. The best part is that she was a normal 15-year-old girl. When she came, we were invited to the Croatian hall where she would be speaking. We didn't want to go empty-handed, so we gathered medical supplies, clothes, and even old toys. All these were going to be sent back to Bosnia. This would be our first encounter with people who had been persecuted in Bosnia. We expected nothing less than for them to be accepting and tolerant. I thought they would care less what color, creed, or race any of us were. Unfortunately, some proved us wrong. As Lotta was speaking in front of people from Croatia, they were all nodding their heads. Yes, yes, they would say. She spoke about all of the injustices that one must go through for a simple label or belief. She mentioned her experience as a 14-year-old growing up in war-torn Bosnia, how hard it was for her to lose friends because of the way they looked or what they believed in. At this point, we were the ones nodding our heads. There is one thing that really stands out in my mind from that night, however. As she was answering questions, a couple of adults asked her what ethnicity she was. Croatian, Muslim, Serbian. I was upset that instead of getting the message that she was trying to convey, they were too preoccupied with what nationality she was. Were these the same adults that preached how wrong racism and discrimination are? Were these the same people that had a minute ago agreed that we shouldn't care about labels? Lotta looked around and stared at us and simply said, "I'm a human being." That's exactly what we all are. We spend so much time trying to figure out what race a person is when we could just get to know them as an individual. I feel like answering their question with a question. Does it matter? Will it make a difference if she's Croatian, Muslim, or Serbian? She taught me the most valuable lesson that anybody ever had, and to think that she is only 15. Ever since that day, I've tried not to accept society's labels, but fight against them. I have always been taught to be proud of being Latina, proud of being Mexican, and I was. I was probably more proud of being a label than of being a human being. That's what most of us were taught. Since the day we entered the world, we were a label, a number, a statistic, and that's just the way it is. Now, if you ask me what race I am, like Zlata, I'll simply say I'm a human being. Okay, so for this one, I would have taken, and I like this idea, where you can take and do bubble letters, I'm a human being, and I'll show you why. It'll just take me, oh, that's a W, isn't it? Sorry. There it is. Okay, and then in here, she said that they were going to be, she talked about what it was to be a human being and what the people were asking her. Is she Croatian? Croatian? Muslim? Serbian. Okay. And then in our case, it's going to be, are you Mexican? Black? White? Native? Asian. Right? And is that right, Asian? I think I misspelled it. I think it's A-I-N or I-A-N. Right? Is that right? That looks better, I think. I don't know. I'm not sure. Anyway, you get the idea, right? And so what is it to be a human being? What does that mean? Okay. That means that we all have our own identity as far as our culture goes. But deep down inside, what are we truly but a spirit and a body? And we are all, I like to think of it this way, and you can do this in any type of faith. You can think of it as being a heavenly being trying to live a human experience. You see what I mean? Okay. And so if you have this idea that human being, it doesn't matter. What matters is that we're all human beings. We all have thoughts and feelings and ideas, correct? Okay. Does that help? Okay. All right, we're on Diary 48, number 94, page 94. Dear Diary, today I went to the Croatian hall with Zlata and met a little boy named Tony who lived a nightmare because he was Croatian. One night while he was asleep, Serbian soldiers came into his home and shot him in the face at point-blank range. A Bosnian woman living in LA sponsored Tony's trip to the United States to have his jaw reconstructed. When we met him, he had only metal plate holding his jaw together. When I saw Tony, I was grateful my family made it out of Peru before we were harmed, or worse, killed. I thought of my 3-year-old brother and pictured him standing in Tony's place, telling this ghastly story. Like the life of my family, Tony's life had been permanently altered by the terror of war. He was a survivor of ethnic cleansing. We were survived the revolution that turned into terrorism. Even though the Bosnian War was one of ethnicity and religion, it was just as senseless as the terrorism that ransacked my country. It forced many to leave behind their homes and their lives. Although the terrorist struggle in Peru started as a good cause, it turned many people's lives into a nightmare. Just walking by a parked car, you couldn't help wondering if there was a bomb hidden in its trunk. As you passed, you wondered if it was going to explode in your face. I remember my dad saying, "Everything will turn out okay." In the United States, there are more opportunities and better jobs and no terrorism. When my dad said that, I didn't really understand what it meant. I was only 10. I only thought about homework, food, and going outside to play with my friends. I had been in the U.S. before to visit my family, but never thought I would end up living there. 4 weeks after my dad told us we were moving, my grandmother called for us. My dad went to the American Embassy to take care of the paperwork for our green cards. We would get our Social Security numbers and green cards 3 months after our arrival in the States. 3 weeks before flying to the U.S., terrorists blew up the house next to mine. The explosion woke everybody in the neighborhood. My eyes snapped open as a wave of warm air hit my face. I got out of bed, realizing that there was only smoke and bright light where my bedroom window once was. I saw my mom running toward me, screaming, but I couldn't hear her. All I heard was a ringing in my head. She grabbed me, shaking the ringing from my ear. I heard the turmoil in my neighborhood. She carried me outside. My feet were bleeding from stepping on broken glass blown from my window. The fireman told my father that out of the 20 sticks of dynamite, 10 exploded. If all had ignited, my house would have exploded also. I realized that the magnitude of what was happening and was glad to be moving to the U.S. My first day of school in the United States was very hard. I didn't understand any English words. Everything was so different. I had had some English classes in Peru, but nothing like this. Nobody spoke so fast. Their words were hard to follow. Everything sounded like R's and S's, and I couldn't talk, read, or write English. The third day of school, some Mexican guys spoke to me. We talked and played, and they taught me English. Like my first years in the U.S., Tony didn't understand English. My only way to communicate was to play with him. It lifted my spirit to see his joy despite his tragic story. Though it hurt him to smile, he laughed anyway. Though he couldn't understand a word we were saying, he understood that we felt his pain. We, too, knew what it felt like to live amid war. When Zlata wrote about Bosnian children becoming the soldiers and the soldiers becoming children at first, I didn't get her meaning. After hearing Tony's story, I understood. In war, the innocence of a child is lost. And though the soldiers feel theirs is a worthy cause, they behave like children when trying to achieve their goals. Knowing that a grown man entered a child's bedroom stealing his innocence makes me sad. They stole his smile, and Tony wears the permanent scars of war on his face, just as I wear the scars on my soul. Diary 49, Dear Diary. I am so exhausted from yesterday. We got to spend the whole day with Lotta and Myrna. Our marathon day started at 7 a.m. and I didn't get home until 9 p.m. last night. Or was it 11 p.m.? Even though I'm exhausted, I can't wait to spend another day with them. Our day began with a breakfast by the Dream Team moms. These are the dedicated moms who have adopted our class as their kids. After we had breakfast, we left in buses to Los Angeles. It was my first time in a charter bus. The buses were air-conditioned, had televisions, a VCR, and lights that we could turn on and off at our seats, plus a bathroom. A big difference from the school buses. Soon we got to the Museum of Tolerance, our first stop. For many, it was their first time there. But this was my second time. During our freshman year, we went straight to the museum's theater to watch Higher Learning. This time, we had a private tour of the museum. The museum focuses on stereotypes, prejudice, genocide, and history of intolerance. There were comic strips to show us some examples of how people were misjudged and how our negative thoughts can lead to violence. Plus, there was a section of worn-out shoes, each representing a victim of the Holocaust. During the tour, I received a passport with the child's face and name. Throughout the museum, you get to find out what happens to them. Each room I went into, I would slip my passport into a computer, and it would tell me the fate of the child. Some of my friends had passports where the child died. Many of us cried during the tour. After we came out of the museum, the ground was wet from the rain. It seemed like the rain was a symbol of tears for those who had died, as though they were crying out their tears of sorrows and stories to us. After the tour, we went to Lowry's, the House of Prime Rib, for lunch. It is located in Beverly Hills. I was afraid to touch anything because I might break something. The dining tables had a candle with fresh flowers and the napkins folded in the fanciest way. The seats were made of real leather. They weren't sticky or smelly like some of the restaurants I've been to. Lowry's treated us like royalty. The chef came around with the food and heated a cart to serve us prime rib. Even the restaurant was decorated with fresh flowers. One thing's for sure, it's a lot nicer than our school's. It's a lot nicer than our school's restrooms, which constantly smelled like cigarettes and had makeup stains on the mirror and sink. Sometimes you will find the sinks clogged up with paper towels or see wadded toilet paper hanging from the ceilings. Once we were stuffed as pigs, we went back to the museum to watch the private screening of Schindler's List. Oskar Schindler started out as a man who wore his gold Nazi pin with pride. He couldn't care less about the Jews and others being rounded up and taken away in crowded cattle cars. During one of the Jewish roundups, he saw a little girl in a red petticoat. She stood out from everyone because the movie was in black and white. Have a good weekend. She was running away from the chaos and hiding. A few days later, he found her dead with a pile of other bodies ready to be thrown into the fire. That's when he started to try to save every Jew he could with the money he had. By the end, he had saved over 1,000 Jews. The movie made the night wave, the diary of Anne Frank, a young girl, come to life. One of my friends actually said he had a flashback about the death of one of his friends. He said that the little girl's red coat reminded him of his friend's blood. It made me realize that senseless violence didn't only happen in history books and movies. After the movie, we headed to the Century City Marriott Hotel to have a reception for Holocaust survivors and ourselves. The Holocaust survivor at our table showed us his tattoo, and it made me wonder if he ever tried to hide it from others. I wanted to know, what was he thinking every day in the camp? What was his greatest fear? Did he ever think of suicide? I wanted to ask, but was too nervous, and I thought my questions were stupid. Near the end of dinner, students introduced the Holocaust survivor sitting next to them and told us the most interesting information about their experiences. Some of my questions were actually answered, but there will always be more. I feel that reading the books gave me a foundation for this piece of history, but today's marathon with the museum, the movie, and especially meeting the survivors gave me a better understanding of the Holocaust. I'm glad they survived to tell their stories and pass the baton, and my fingertips are still tingling. Diary 50, Dear Diary. Sorry, Diary. I was going to try not to do it tonight, but the little baggie of white powder is calling my name. As I chop up the white rock in my special makeup mirror into very fine powder, I start thinking about the past with Zlata and our infamous toast for a change. Zlata left today, and I can't help but feel guilty for what I've been doing lately. We're all about changing for the better, and I'm changing for the worse. This whole week, people have been looking at us as model teenagers who have changed their lives. The local newspapers have actually done stories about us bringing Zlata here and how we've made monumental changes in our lives. That part is true. But then there's me. It doesn't bother me that I'm being dishonest, especially to Zlata. But is it lying when I don't say anything? Miss Gorell would be so disappointed if she found out. I definitely can't say anything now because it would really make things worse. I don't know what she would do, especially since Zlata was here. I might as well keep it a secret at this point. I wish she wouldn't trust me so much. I mean, how can she trust me if I can't even trust myself? She shouldn't trust anyone who steals money from their family, begs friends for change, and digs through her couch just to support her drug habit. In some sick way, I wish I could get caught so all this lying would be behind me. Then reality kicks in when I see that line in front of me. When it comes down to it, I'm not ready to change. I know I should stop, but it would be wrong to stop for someone else. When I hear cheesy cliches like hugs not drugs or be smart, don't start, it makes me want to do it more. Yak, yak, yak. Come on, get real. How boring. Quite honestly, I'm just not ready to quit yet. I'm what you call a closet tweaker. To clear things up, a tweaker is someone who smokes or snorts speed. Nobody knows my secret, especially Zlata, and I like to keep it that way. It's not something to brag about. I'm getting to the point where I can hide it in plain sight. When Zlata was here, she and Miss Gorell had no idea that I was high. I even got high before we went to Universal Studios with her, but I played it off as much as I could. Even though we were talking about our favorite bands between rides, I don't think she knew. When I first started getting high, I would be all strung out and I couldn't sit still, but now I've learned to control it and I can play it off. I guess that's what happens when you do it all the time. People never see what is right in front of their nose. And believe me, I use it to my advantage. The worst thing about it is that I'm already in an outpatient rehab 2 days a week. But I just have to make things worse by doing drugs more and more, harder and harder. It's so ironic how all this got started. I was put in a rehab after our toast for a change for possession of marijuana, but now that I'm in rehab, I'm addicted to speed. Where's the change in that? When everyone else is changing their old habits, I'm making new ones. My worst fear is that I'm becoming an addict. I mean, can someone like me have an addiction? When I think of an addict, I think of someone walking the streets, begging people for change, sucking dick for a score, leaving their babies in the trash still alive. But when I think about it, I'm no better. I'm what you call a model child, a good daughter, one of Miss Gorell's favorite students. And now I have an amazing new friend, but I'm lying to my mom, Miss G, and Zlata. Not exactly model child material. Now, I guess you can call me an addict. No more A's on tests or bringing teachers apples like I did that anyway. I'll beg, steal, cheat just to get a quick line. Sure, it has pitfalls, but you know what they say, curiosity killed the cat. Well, not this cat. For me, a quick line has turned into a fast hit from the glass pipe. The higher the intensity, the better the high, and that is my preferred party favor, the glass pipe. It kind of freaks me out because I never thought I would be at this point. Is there time to turn back, or am I going to get closer to the dark tunnel with no light and no way out? I actually believe that this week was Zlata, and relieved that this week was Zlata and all the attention is over. Not that it was boring, it was really fun, but I didn't deserve it. With all of that behind me, I whip out a straw, sit down on the toilet, and make sure the bathroom door is locked. Bring it to my nose and snort. The burn is a sure sign that I'm on my way to my next high. Oh yeah, it's going to be good. No more headaches, body aches, or stomach aches until, of course, the high is over, but only until I reach for my best friend called crystal meth. Diary 51, Dear Diary. Basketball for Bosnia was an event to remember. Miss Gorell and her students held the tournament and the university to help donate all sorts of food and medical supplies for kids in Bosnia. There were over 500 people in attendance, and besides basketball, there was a cheer camp for the little brothers and sisters and a talent show at halftime. I got to play on a team even though I'm not in her class. My team was Anne's Angels in honor of Anne Frank. I even got to keep the jersey. No one really cared who won or lost. We were just having fun to help people in need. I want to get into her class so badly after today. There's so much more than a class. They act like a family. Miss Gorell does things that are so smart yet so simple. I feel as though I were already a part of their team because no one cared what color I was or how I looked. All they cared about was coming together for the same cause. Being accepted for who you are without having anyone snicker at you was great, but it's not something I'm used to. It brought back a lot of memories from my past. I'm in my honors class. I've never really been that comfortable. I've always been the oddball and have never felt accepted. I feel like I'm always trying to prove that I belong. I remember feeling like that back in the day. I grew up surrounded by fat people. My mom, overweight. My brother, overweight. My sister, overweight. My aunt, yeah, you guessed it, overweight. As a child, I always thought, why me? Why did I have to be overweight? Why did I have to be the child that didn't play sports because I was overweight? I couldn't climb the gym ropes. I couldn't swing on the swings. I couldn't do a pull-up. I thought nothing could be done about my weight. I thought that was just the way I was supposed to be, fat. Jumping rope and having other kids yell, "Earthquake, run for cover," really hurt. People often told me, why do you let people talk to you that way? Speak up for yourself, but I didn't have the courage to do so. I was afraid to say anything for fear they might say, "Shut your fat ass up." So I thought I would save myself the embarrassment. My 6th grade year was hell. I hardly had any friends, and I couldn't look anyone in the face. All I could think about was food. By the time I completed 6th grade, I weighed over 200 pounds, and that's a lot of damn weight for a 6th grader. I wore size 26 to 28, and I had no confidence in myself. I thought I was ugly. I had no boyfriend, didn't go to parties, and had no social life. I pretty much kept to myself. When some ignorant kids would see me at lunch, they would say, "Your fat ass don't need to be eating shit." I would just ignore them, but after a while, the comments were really hard for me to ignore. It was difficult for me to believe that someone would take away my self-esteem just to gain their own. The only reason why I didn't resort to kicking their skinny butts is because I didn't want to be known as fat and a bully, because then no one would talk to me. I felt alone, ashamed, and left out of everything. I would go home after school and think of the things I wanted to say to them, but never had the courage to say it. I hated them and myself. I felt as if I was living in a shell, and there was no way for me to get out. Rather than feeling sorry for myself, I turned to books and school to feel good. Suddenly, I was getting straight A's. School allowed me to creep out of my shell slowly but surely. Basketball for Bosnia practically was a rebirth. All my insecurities flew out the window, and then the tournament was over. We formed a Soul Train line and danced on the basketball court. I can't believe that I had the courage to go through the center of the line and dance in front of 500 people. Everybody went crazy. They cheered me on and waved their hands in the air. I felt wanted, like I was part of a family. I wasn't just another face in the class. I had a chance to express myself and be a star. Zlata's letter, Dublin, June 4th, 1996. To my dear friends. It has been a while since I spent that crazy little but at the same time very big and very special week with you. And I still recall the moments, rewinding the movie in my head, and remember all of you. Read your letters, listen to the tapes you gave me, look at the presents, look at the stain on my jacket from the flying drink. Just kidding. All the memories you gave me will be with me forever, as they are sometimes as they are something one should not forget. And I just wanted to thank you for all that, for your friendship, your understanding. That is something mankind needs desperately, and you certainly have it together with your strong ambition to make the world a better place by starting with yourselves and your surroundings. You are real heroes. But I also want to thank you for doing what you are doing today for my country, for children and young people who truly need people like yourselves, who will unselfishly and in a 100% humane way do something for themselves. Thank you for not forgetting them, for shadowing the feeling of being abandoned the rest of the world gives them. You must know that they will appreciate it greatly. They will appreciate anything you give them, because it is not about the question of the amount, but the gesture it brings as well as a lot as well. Offering a helping hand is more than great. So not to make the extremely long as best as I could, I will just wish you the best of luck today and the best of fun as well. Enjoy yourselves. Your friends will hopefully know a little bit more about Bosnia thanks to you. Go Bosnia Beauties, haha, and all the others. Don't forget the strength is in you. You have the power, and you also have the choice where to direct that power to. Just don't forget that. Once more, thank you for everything in my name and in the name of all those from a little country of Bosnia who need your help. And special thanks to your wonderful and amazing teacher. Let me hear some ovations. I love you and miss you all very much. All my friendship. See you soon. With love, Zlata. Warmest and sincere regards to everyone in sunny LA. We must live to learn together as brothers or perish together as fools. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Diary 52. Dear Diary, my life is going downhill so quickly I'm not sure if I can hold it up anymore. Let's start from the beginning. The other day, my sister and I were looking through some pictures we found in our parents' room. We found this picture of an old man and my mother together at a hotel. They were sitting on their bathing suits together, arms around each other. The crazy part is that my parents are still married. It didn't make any sense to either of us. I think it hit me a little harder than it did my sister, though I couldn't decide if I wanted to cry or start yelling. This was my family my mom was screwing with. We took the pictures to my mom and asked her about the man. She got really defensive and told us to stay out of her room, that we had no right going through her stuff, and that he was just a friend. Yeah, right. I didn't believe it for a minute. She wouldn't have been so upset if this guy were just a friend. When my mom went out of town last week with her friend from work, she was really with this man. That means she's cheating on my dad. Neither of us can say anything to our dad, so we've decided to keep our mouths closed. He is going to find out soon enough. My family is starting to crumble a bit. It isn't falling yet, but I know it will soon. I want to rely on Miss G's class to be my surrogate family, but I'm slowly finding out that it might not be a good idea because we might not be a family next year. Although Miss G wants to teach us next year as juniors, the other English teachers don't want to let her. They argue that a teacher who has only been teaching here for a couple of years doesn't have the right to handpick her students and teach them for 4 years. There was a handful of teachers complaining, and now we are in jeopardy of not being in class next year. This can't be happening to me. Now both of my families are falling apart. I'm not going to have anyone left because we are being split into different classes. I can't handle it. I can't lose both of my families. This is all I have left. To think it's only because the other teachers are jealous. We are getting all the attention now. Newspapers are writing articles about us. Some teachers haven't done anything new in years, and now that we are trying something new, they're becoming jealous. They're trying to hold us down, split us up, keep us from making a difference. It's not going to work. Miss G did what she does best. She talked to anyone who listens to her about our accomplishments until we've made some headway. They were talking about letting us have our own class. Everyone is worried. I've caught a couple of kids crying about it, and actually someone probably caught me more than once. All I can think about is us not being together. What will we do? Who will we turn to? As if high school isn't hard enough, this would make it 10 times harder. Right now, I have my comfort zone. I have a place where everyone accepts me, and I accept everyone, and I can't be without this for the next 2 years. It's been a hard time for everyone. We have to keep working in class. Although we don't know if we are going to be together next year or not. These teachers can't break our chain. We are linked, not by our hands, but by our hearts, and we will always be together. I'm scared, very scared, and I hope everything will work out. Diary 53. Dear Diary, school's almost over, and I just found out that we could have Miss Gurrell next year. It's great news for all of us. She fought hard to keep us together. I've been lucky to have her for 2 years. My mom says I've hit the lottery in education. She's the best teacher I've ever had. She truly cares about us and never judges us based on appearances. Now I get to be in her class my junior year. I have a lot of friends who are in honors English, and they're becoming quite interested in what my class has been doing lately. There have been questions about our field trips and the dinners we attend. After all the years, my friends who have made me feel stupid are now interested in my class. After all, they used to call Miss Gurrell's class a ghetto class because of all the minorities. They have always made me feel like the dumb white boy because I'm not in their honors class. Well, it looks like they're the losers because they don't know how great this class really is and how many friends I have made because of it. We have had many guest speakers and traveled to museums and social functions. I believe I view things much differently than my friends do because of my new experiences. But hey, they're still my friends. I told my friends that there was going to be room for a couple more students in Miss G's class. I found out that they all signed a waiting list to get in her class the very next day. If my friends are accepted, I hope that they will treat Miss G and the other students with respect. If not, I have to regulate because as far as I'm concerned, they're the ones on probation in my ghetto class. And we will stop here. How far did we get? 92 to 107. Almost 20 pages. Almost.